Cyberpunk 2077 is the long-awaited game from CD Projekt Red. This game has been in development for like 7 years or so by this point. It's been delayed several times to the point where it's actually becoming a meme. And now it's supposed to be coming out on December 10th, so 6 days away from the day of this recording. Now, if it's not delayed again, that's when it's supposed to come out, and we can finally answer the question, is Cyberpunk good? Or will it live up to the massive amount of hype and expectations that fans have on it? And I'm just gonna say straight up, no, it's probably not. Now, this doesn't mean that this is going to be an awful game or a disaster like, let's say, No Man's Sky was on release. I have enough faith in CD Projekt Red that they will deliver a fun game that isn't going to cure world hunger. And I feel like this is the problem with a lot of hardcore fans of games, is that they set these really unrealistic expectations for themselves before they play the game. Now, it's not necessarily entirely their fault, because this game has been delayed several times, and all the hype trailers and CD Projekt Red coming out and making all these bombastic statements certainly isn't helping their case, but there should be a grain of salt with it. There should be some sense of managed expectations. Having managed expectations for a game, despite being really, really excited for it, goes a long way in preventing you from being severely disappointed. I've been burned by games before in the past that I was extremely excited for and I had really high expectations of. For example, we'll say Diablo 3. Upon release, that game was a fucking disaster. I mean, people have probably forgotten already, but you have things like the infamous Error 37, the real money auction house, the lack of story or side quests, etc. Like, it was bad. And I remember enjoying Diablo 2 so much that my expectations were really high for Diablo 3, and I was ultimately extremely let down by it. I've been on that block before. I've been on that burned by a major game studio's burn before. And that's the thing that kind of strikes me as interesting, is that CD Projekt Red is a major game studio with the same issues that Naughty Dog or EA have, in that they do have a history of workplace abuse, meaning psychological mostly, where the long crunch time hours, severely underpaying their employees. This company is not free of criticism. They definitely have their issues. They make good games, but that doesn't make them free of criticism. Fan culture is really, really strange to me, because I completely understand being really excited for something and really enjoying something. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you not to enjoy something, because that's just really stupid and overly pessimistic. But what does strike me as really strange is people who set these incredible, unrealistic expectations for a game, and when it doesn't meet it, they flip out and get really upset about it. They send death threats to the developers. Like, it's insane to me how this even started, this super toxic, borderline obsession with wanting a game to be great. Like, I want games to be good too. I want to enjoy games as well, because God knows there's so many shitty games out there that, when the one game that I'm really excited for is coming out soon, I want it to be good. But at the same time, there's only so much that developers can do. Cyberpunk has been in development hell for over 7 years at this point, and if it comes out good, then that's great. It's one of the rare exceptions of it, but I think that people are really setting themselves up for disappointment with the level of expectation that people have for this game. Because ultimately, what this game is to me is an action RPG game, with an open world, diverse choices, and a really cool cyberpunk skin on it. And that's all I'm really going into it with. I'm not expecting every single quest to be diverse and different. I'm not expecting all the dialogue and voice acting to be amazing. I'm not expecting the gameplay to be solid and tight. There's always sacrifices here and there. There's always something that's missing with video games, and Cyberpunk will probably not be an exception to that rule. For as much as people love The Witcher 3, I personally thought that the combat was dog shit, and it was the worst part of that game. I enjoyed everything else, the story, the dialogue, the characters, the setting, the graphics, but the gameplay, the combat itself was awful. I avoided it any chance that I got. With Cyberpunk 2077, there could be something wrong with the dialogue, there could be something wrong with the voice acting or the story, and have great gameplay. It's just how games work. There are obvious exceptions to the rule, but there's no games that are perfect. And Cyberpunk 2077 is just set up to fail by a lot of hardcore fans because they've been waiting for this game for a very, very long time, and they've been seeing nothing but these like shiny, glossy gameplay demos and Night City wires. Obviously, the game probably isn't going to function like that upon release. I expect it to be somewhat buggy. I expect there to be some kind of downgrades in some way because that's just how games are. It's really unfortunate that we're advertised something different than what we get most of the time, but at the same time, you know, it's been over 5 or 6 years of this shit at this point. Like, we have to learn how to manage expectations because a lot of hardcore fans, they don't process disappointment rationally. A lot of hardcore fans, they will go after developers. They will send them death threats. They will tweet them horrible shit because they were disappointed in a product. And that's just like straight up just not okay. Like, at that point, you need to learn how to detach yourself from the game. You need to go outside and get a fucking personality because these are just games at the end of the day. Sure, you can absolutely be upset that a game sucks or that you were disappointed by it, but to go after the developers and the people who made it and the people who missed Christmases with their families, you know, worked 6-day work weeks, to attack those people is straight up sickening and absolutely like reprehensible behavior. But I think that hardcore fans themselves, they set themselves up for that. So with Cyberpunk only 6 days away, I want to, you know, kind of have a shout out to any people who may watch this or may listen to this and say, look, it's totally okay to be excited for this game. I'm excited for this game, but you also need to learn how to manage your expectations, because when you have expectations this unreasonably high, you're really just setting yourself up for disappointment. No matter what you dreamt about or how you imagined playing this game, reality will never live up to it. It's the same reason that an artist can have a painting in their head, and when they put it on the canvas, they fucking hate it because it's never like it is in their head, and it never will be. So that's the same thing with video games and movies and music and all that. When you have this perfect, ideal version of a game in your head, of course you're going to be disappointed by the final product because, like I said, it's borderline impossible to put what's in your head out there. And I feel like Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be a good game. I don't think it'll be like an awful one, but I could be wrong. But I think it's going to be a solid game that